Hi, it's Mrs. Pope, and today we have a quick lesson on factoring the difference of perfect squares. So our goal is to recognize and factor. So we want to recognize perfect squares, so you got to be up on your squares, knowing your perfect squares. We want to recognize and factor the difference of perfect squares. So this little shortcut comes in handy a lot, so it's very useful. But it's only when you see the difference, only when it's subtracted. So if this were a plus sign, what we're going to do does not work. I can't stress that enough. It must be the difference of perfect squares. So if you have some term that's a perfect square minus another term that's a perfect square, if you want to factor it, it just turns into like the square root of that. So a plus b times a minus b. Now this is just the equation. We're going to turn it into some real life problems, but this is the equation we're going to refer back to because I'm going to be using a and b in our examples. So example 1, factor x squared minus 25. Notice first we want to recognize it's a difference, it has a subtraction. There's only two terms, and the first one's a perfect square, so I could take x times x and get x squared. And 25 is a perfect square because the square root of 25 is 5. A perfect square just means if you take the square root, you'll end up with a single number. Or a single variable, no fractions, no decimals, anything weird like that. So if we're looking at our formula here, if this is the first thing squared, a here is going to be x, that's the square root of x squared. B is going to be the square root of 25, which is 5. So this factors into x plus 5, x minus 5. Simple as that. That's it. So example 2, we have y squared minus 121, so recognizing that is a difference of perfect squares, 121 is in fact 11 squared. So here our a would be the y squared, the square root of that would be y. Our b is 11. Now you should have it. You're done. Y plus 11, y minus 11. Simple as that. Let's look at two more examples, and then I'll give you some to try on your own. Example 3, 16x squared minus 9. Notice the first term now has a coefficient, but the coefficient is a perfect square, so it still fits the formula. So the first term, if I took the square root of that entire term, I would end up with 4x. The second term is 9, so if I took the square root of that, I would end up with 3. So then this factors into 4x plus 3 and 4x minus 3. Simple as that. All right, last one we're going to try, 4 minus 100x squared. You can see the 4, perfect square, that would be 2 if I took the square root. 100, the square root of that is 10. The square root of x squared, of course, is x. So I'm just left with 2 plus 10x times 2 minus 10x. That's it. So I have a few for you to try on your own. So I want you to factor the following: 64x squared minus 49, x squared minus 4, and 16x squared minus 144y squared. And then a bonus for you would be to create 3 problems on your own and solve them. So similar to this, just use any other numbers that are perfect squares, and that would be great. Thanks for watching, and remember, you are responsible for your own learning.